from Michigan Public. This is It's Just Politics. I'm Zoe Clark.
And I'm Rick Pluta.
Today, charges against the businesswoman accused of misusing millions of dollars in state money.
And charges of invalid petition signatures in the race for governor.
Let's round up the past week in political news with Chad Livengood, politics editor at the Detroit News. Chad, hey.
Hi, Chad.
Hey, guys, it's been a barn burner of a week.
It has.
So let's start with Attorney General Dana Nessel. She has now filed charges against Faye Baydoun. This is the politically connected businesswoman who's been connected to this $20 million state grant. The Detroit News brought this story to light. Fill us in on the latest.
Well, it all started with a $4,500 coffee maker. And that's how we first got onto the scent. There was something going on here that people might not appreciate. Let's just put it that way. So that's the backstory, is that this was one of the nearly 200 grants that were stuffed in the state budget, kind of in the middle of the night on June 30th, 2022, totaling nearly $1 billion, a really historic spending spree by the legislature when there was just piles of money laying around Lansing. And we went on the hunt to try to figure out what were all these things. And there was this one mystery international business accelerator based in Farmington Hills that we couldn't quite figure out what it was. And it's one of these things in the language, as Attorney General Dana Nessel calls the perfect slipper, or a golden or glass slipper amendment, that it only fits 1 foot. And finally, in March of 2023, nearly 9 months after the budget passes, we finally got our hands on the one-page document that identified this as being a business entity set up by Faye Baydoun, a prominent businesswoman who ran the American Arab Chamber of Commerce for many years in Dearborn. And it was $20 million with kind of a vague, mission to attract international companies to Michigan. And about a year later, we finally got some first receipts on what the money was being spent on. And that's where we first learned of that $4,500 coffee maker. And then we found out about a $550,000 salary. And this all triggered an investigation by the Attorney General's office, which they made initial charges against Faye Baydoun for allegedly running a criminal enterprise, essentially allegedly enriching herself in the use of this state grant for a variety of things. I mean, anything. It wasn't just the coffee maker; it was the Tunisian rugs, apparently, that caught her. And also schemes of fake rent and forging documents and other ways, essentially, to pocket this money. And so this has been a scandal that has really exposed some of the limited oversight that goes on between both the legislature and how they dole this money out, and the executive branch, a la the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, which the twist on there was that Faye Baydoun was a board member of the MEDC at this time period when she was lobbying the MEDC and the Whitmer administration, and eventually the House Speaker Jason Wentworth, to get this money. I mean, and so it just raised a whole lot of questions about, who is actually guarding the henhouse here.
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there, Chad. So remind us what this money, what these state dollars were supposed to go for.
They were supposed to go for projects that legislators deemed worthwhile. And so this was officially on paper sponsored by Jason Wentworth, the Speaker of the House at the time. He has since denied that this was his project, but what we really found out was that Faye Baydoun had teamed up with a Republican donor, a businessman from Okemos named Sharif Hussein, who was pretty influential in Republican circles, and he had access to Wentworth. And so, the paper trail has sort of revealed that Baydoun worked over the Whitmer administration, of which she was appointee to the MEDC board, another state board, and used her contacts to get meetings with the MEDC CEO and the state budget director, And Hussein worked over Wentworth and some of his staffers as well to get this money put in the state budget. And so, but that's one of the things about these earmarks. It was kind of a wild west. I mean, we've documented, senior centers in tiny towns in Alcona County, money for economic development agency in the Upper Peninsula that bought a bunch of shot glasses with its name on it. I mean, and so on and so forth. I mean, I think in the past it used to be these special enhancement grants, as they're called. People would get a road paved, that on a city street that they couldn't get funding for through MDOT or their county road commission. And instead they've kind of morphed into like anything goes. And so like we saw a serious scenario where a for-profit developer formed a nonprofit in order to collect money to help subsidize their condo project on the Huron River in Ann Arbor, and there was a private medical imaging company, didn't even exist on paper, just got $5 million in the state budget. I mean, so this was the sort of pretty rampant in the state budget that year. And it kind of, but the Beydoun affair has really kind of, put a full focus on it, as we've learned about first-class airline tickets to Budapest and Tunisian rugs, and where the receipt was written in French, and the MEDC approved the expense because apparently nobody knew French.
Chad, I mean, someone listening to this is going, what was going on that year in the budget process that all of this was allowed to happen?
Yeah, I mean, well, we had a Republican legislature, both houses at the time, and a Democratic governor. A Democratic governor wanted to do deals, and Republicans seemed to want to do deals too. And so they all kind of got in a room and divvied up the money in some fashion. And Democrats got a whole lot of money for projects in their district. I think at the time, the city of Detroit, like out of that $1 billion, they got about 65 million, which is a pretty good sum rolling in for Detroit. I mean, there was just so much money laying around. It was full employment for the Lansing Lobby Corps. And frankly, it's been full employment for journalists too, because we've been trying to track this stuff down. We are still trying to get receipts on how this money was spent. I literally just approved an expense of $500 for FOIA fees today. A little coming attractions. I won't say what it was, but I think it's going to be interesting. If the MEDC wants that kind of cash for documents in their possession, we've been we're willing to pay it when we think there's something there.
So we have the work that you've done to uncover this. We have the Attorney General filing criminal charges. What should we be watching for next?
Well, there will be some preliminary exam at some point in the future for Faye Beydoun. She was charged in district court in Farmington Hills, where her house is, and so the Attorney General says the investigation is ongoing. It doesn't lend itself as a hint that there's like another big fish they're going for. I mean, if you go back to like the Flint water crisis prosecutions that Bill Schuette did and eventually Dana Nessel did, they were hunting for bigger game at time. You could just tell based on when they were how they rolled the charges out, how they portrayed it. The Attorney General did at one point during the press conference last week, when she was asked about a meeting that Faye Beydoun claimed she had with the governor on December 9th, 2021. It would be kind of like the proverbial smoking gun if it actually happened. They said they couldn't substantiate that it actually happened. I mean, the Attorney General has subpoena power. She can find out everybody's text messages and even their encrypted messages. And she was not able to substantiate this. The governor's own calendar says she was at an Oxford memorial that day. So I mean, the Republicans are clearly going to be on the hunt politically for any evidence that the governor, greenlit this thing. At the same time, the governor's office has continued to sort of try to, as I put in my column, pin the tail on the donkey of Jason Wentworth. and say that it was all a Wentworth thing, and the facts really don't really bear that out. That it really was two players tangoing here, and so I mean, politically, I think this is going to get fought, in campaigns in different ways. And then, from the prosecution standpoint, we'll see what Dana Nessel can do with these charges and advancing them in the criminal justice system in her 7 months or so left in office.
Right. She's only got so much time. We're speaking with Chad Livengood, politics editor at the Detroit News. Chad, in the time that we have left, let's turn to signatures. We are back here yet again, it seems, with fights and accusations of invalid petition signatures in the race for governor. What do we know here?
Yeah, so there's two different complaints have been filed. One has been a pro John James super PAC called Mission Michigan, and they have filed a complaint against Perry Johnson, alleging he's got a lot of invalid signatures, duplicates, and such. And if you recall, Perry Johnson, the businessman, very wealthy businessman from Bloomfield Hills, he
Quality
got tossed
control
off the
guru.
ballot. Yeah, the quality control guru didn't have quality control in his first time around running for governor, and he got dumped off the ballot along with 4 other candidates in 2022. And so now they're saying he's got some of the similar problems. And then one of his allies has filed a complaint against John James, saying they violated some various rules and regulations and procedures for petition signatures. So this has become every single cycle we've got a case like this. I mean, from John Conyers, when he had to get a judge to get him back on the ballot the last time he ran for re-election. And of course, a couple of other congressional candidates have gotten bounced. And then we had the big scandal with the 5 candidates for governor. And so we still got a couple of weeks until the Secretary of State's office or Bureau of Elections will make its recommendation on who they think is eligible based on the sampling, and then of the signatures, and then it can still be kicked to the courts. And of course, the Board of Canvassers first will then consider it. So we're kind of in the second inning still in this fight.
Right. So the Elections Bureau will make its recommendations based on a random sampling of signatures, and then the campaigns can come in and make their own challenges to signatures. And those are the ones that are really politically motivated, which doesn't mean that those complaints aren't valid or invalid.
That's right. Yeah. And so they'll sort that out. I mean, what we see almost every time, typically when these things are really, really heated, this 4-member board of canvassers, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, they will typically deadlock, and then it will get kicked to the courts. And so while there is like time on the clock, there's not a lot of time, because again, like with the way our absentee voting works, ballots go out the last week in June for the primary. So with the ballot has to get set within about 30 days from now or so. And so there's not a lot of time. So this will become kind of crucial, and it could very well, disrupt the race for governor again. I mean, especially now you got the 2 front runners in the Republican primary trying to take each other out, essentially. And so that will play out. And there will be people that will ask, how is this possible? How
Right.
can you not just pull together the minimum signatures? And why are these campaigns still hiring these sort of fly-by-night signature gatherers, of which from the 2022 incident, some people just got sentenced to prison for that whole thing, and were prosecuted to the full degree of the law down in Macomb County. So it is mind-boggling to a lot of people about how this is still going on. It's almost become an epidemic in Michigan politics.
I mean, that's the question. Is there actually a chance that we could see something similar to what happened in 22 when these Republican candidates running for governor were booted from the ballot over fake signatures?
I assume there is a chance, but we don't know really quite the extent of the potential fraud that, or wrong signatures or just regular procedures that have been skipped or missed. But yeah, it does just boggle the mind how they haven't gotten better at this ever since 2012 when Thad McCotter, the congressman, got booted off the ballot in an easy reelection down in suburban Wayne and Oakland County, and that was a whole petition signature scandal caused by his own staff, who just basically phoned it in, and then the last weekend they were pasting things together. I mean, it became a kind of running joke in Michigan politics after that. But the joke is just getting, like, every cycle, it just keeps repeating itself, and so it's no longer a laughing matter now.
Okay, Chad, finally, in about the minute we have left, reporter's notebook, or I should say political editor's notebook. What Michigan politics story are you watching over the next week or two?
I think the cost of goods and gas is definitely going to start becoming the issue of the campaign. And as long as this, gas just under $5 a gallon lingers in the economy, the anger is just going to build up among voters. And you're going to start seeing campaigns really try to start focusing and honing in on this. Because, like I said earlier, there's 6 weeks or so, 7 weeks until those absentee ballots start hitting the streets. And so I think you're going to see campaign messaging around this, kind of also mix in some of the growing angst about artificial intelligence and taking people's jobs. You're already seeing some of that in some of the campaign advertising and messaging especially in the U.S. Senate race. And so I think that's going to start starting at the governor's and Senate race, going to trickle down into our competitive congressional races as people are messaging in the run up to the primary ballots being distributed.
Yeah, a lot of sense and messaging about uncertainty.
That's right.
That is Chad Livengood, politics editor at the Detroit News, reviewing the week in Michigan political news. Chad, thanks so much.
Thanks, Chad.
Thanks for having me, guys.
And that is It's Just Politics for today. I'm Zoe Clark.
And I'm Rick Pluta.
Let's talk again next week.